Get up there. Are they all off? I'd like to call to order the regular city council meeting, November 18, 2019, 6:55 PM. Madam Roll Call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder, Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Julia Botel,
Here.
Councilperson Broderick McCoy,
Here.
Councilperson Shirley Lanier,
Here.
Councilperson Douglas Lawson,
Present.
City Manager Jonathan Evans,
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present, City Attorney Don Nguyen. Here. You may proceed.
All right, we'll have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Lawson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
No, Madam Chair, we do not.
Disclosures by council. Have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lanier. Yes. Councilperson McCoy,
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel,
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, members of the public shall be given a total of 3 minutes to speak on all items listed on the consent agenda. Any person who would like to speak on a consent agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have anyone that would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? All right. All matters listed under this item are considered to be routine, and action will be taken by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilperson so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Madam Chair, before I proceed, let the record reflect that Mayor Felder is now on the dais. We do not have any public comment cards on the consent agenda. The acceptance of public comment cards for the consent agenda is now closed. Councilperson Lawson,
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier. Yes. Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Any person who would like to speak on an agenda item, please fill out a public comment card located on the table directly outside of the council chambers and give it to the staff prior to the item being presented to City Council for discussion. Members of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each regular agenda item. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card and speak on an agenda item after the resolution is read or item considered. All right, unfinished business,
None.
petitions and communications for filing.
Madam Chair, I want to announce that the notice for the special city council meeting for November 25th, 2019 at 6 o'clock p.m. has been properly executed. Copies are located outside the council chambers.
Okay. Awards and presentations, item number 3.
West Blue Heron Commercial Development. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Manager?
Madam Chair and members of the board, this item is to discuss the opportunity for some development, commercial development on West Blue Heron. City staff has had the opportunity to meet with the property owner and some of his development team with regards to the commercial development that they are looking to bring forward. However, there are some elements that the city would have to consider in order to effectuate the development. Staff believes that this particular item is a significant opportunity for the city and would like to share with you the conceptual designs that have been proffered by the development team and then request direction from the council as to how you wish to proceed. There has been a lot of time and effort that you will hear communicated this evening that the property owner and his team has put in to actually make this project come to fruition. I know that it has been the desires of this council to see economic development and growth in our community and to effectively see some of the opportunities our residents have been asking for, shops and restaurants, and to see the opportunity to spend their disposable income here in the city of Riviera Beach. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Nichols, and he will have a presentation to the council, and then staff will augment the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I really appreciate that. For the record, Josh Nichols with Schmidt Nichols.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commission. So before I get started, I just wanted to introduce our team that's with us this evening. So we have Seth Bain, who is a land use attorney with us. We also have Chris Bash, who is a general contractor and going to be constructing the facility. And then before I get started, I wanted to bring Stuart Hankin up to the podium real quick to just tell him just a quick background on what he's done in the community and what he hopes to bring forward with this project. So, thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Josh. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So my name is Stuart Henkin. I've been redeveloping properties in Riviera Beach for the last 10 years. For the last 5 years, my office has been in the city of Riviera Beach, and my most recent project has been the construction of 5 new single-family homes in District 1 that we built and sold to homeowners. So. That's just a little bit about me, and we're just going to continue moving along.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. So again, we're really excited to be here. We've probably been working on the project for a year and a half, closer to 2 years. One of the big obstacles that we'll get into is the canal on the north end. So, but let's kind of go through. So the location map, as you can see, a trying parcel, long linear. We're on Blue Heron, and you can see just on the north side, and you see to the south is the UPS warehouse distribution facility. And you can see, we'll show a little bit closer the detail of where that canal is, but wanted to go through just kind of, this is our hype video. So we had some renderings done, and they actually did a fly-through of the project of what it would look like after it's built. So that's the main entrance there on Blue Heron, and this is obviously moving east to west. You'll see that meandering sidewalk and pathway with some of the landscape features to, again, push the buildings up against the roadway and to promote the walkability aspect. So I'll just go through these quick. I know that Mr. Gagnon is going to touch on these as well, but I'll just kind of focus on 3 and 4. So the site plan includes roughly 31,000 square feet. It's going to be a mix of first-class retail, restaurant. The hope is to get a medical clinic, kind of like a MD Now type medical at the east end, so we kind of reserve one of the buildings for that. And then the last piece is, again, what we had talked about with the canal abandonment. So as you'll see from the site rendering, that north end is really encumbered. So the parking, the landscape buffer, and the drive aisle is pretty much all encumbered with that canal. So in order to make viable use of the property, something had to be done in order to gain that land area. So we worked tirelessly with staff. They've been great on this. Also with the city attorney's office, with manager's office, to really come full circle on this. So again, as you can see, you have an access point on the far east end. Let me point these out. So east end with just an ingress there. We've got a full opening for the median cut because you can make the left into the site here. And then we have an egress point here as well. So it's just kind of a quick layout. And again, some of the planning techniques that are used, so you recently adopted new corridor provisions for Blue Heron. So that basically pulled these buildings up toward the frontage. So you have that nice exposure. And then there's meandering sidewalks with landscaping that go all along this frontage area. We'll go into some treatments that we did with some cross sections for the back here to help mitigate for the residences that are. So here's the cross sections. So again, this is going south to north across. So you'll see the proposed building, you have the drive aisle, this is part of the buffer, and then we've got right on the property line, we had actually two different scenarios. So one is the wall right on the property line, the other is the wall offset inside the property line to give the appearance of greater backyard area for those folks. And again, these are the representation of the single-family home. So it's kind of in scale of what you would see. Obviously, this spread is not truly to scale, but you can see some of the landscaping we're proposing, so it'll really kind of complement and be hidden with the proposed landscaping. And you can see too, underneath this car is where the pipe is. So what's gonna happen is that canal will be filled over with a pipe going through there. The nice thing about that is right now that's a maintenance issue, not liability, but a maintenance issue for the city. So that would be, just turned off.
Can you switch? Yeah.
Mic check.
Back in the game. All right. So anyway, so going from a maintenance concern to now culverted and utilized and
I don't think
obviously-
that one is working either.
Yes,
It sounds like
Put
it.
up a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
don't
I
have
can
to
hold. Oh, there it was.
You don't need to
Okay.
hold it, though.
That's okay. No worries. Here's a couple quick site renderings. I think the video kind of showed more detail there, but those are some site renderings that were done for the project. So again, this kind of shows, so you can see the site, the actual property dimensions there with the north end. Basically, that canal kind of jives in and out of the property line. And then this next, so you can see that portion in green is where we're looking to do the canal abandonment. So again, really this project doesn't work without the canal abandonment, so it's a very integral piece, and we want to make sure that the council's on board with that as we're moving forward. So, and again, we're not looking for any kind of approvals. We have 3 more hearings that this will come before various boards, but we just wanted to get some input, show this kind of, it's a workshop, so wanted to get your feedback. Some of the community benefits and investments. So the project cost is approximately $10 million. That equates to about $230,000 in tax revenue. And then we're looking at rough 50 to 100 jobs. Again, the tenant mix is unknown at this point, so that's a range that we're looking at least moving forward. So, and with that, I think Jeff may have wanted to come up, or I'll entertain any questions if you have them now, or.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. It's hard for me to see when I look at those renderings. It's reminiscent of PGA Midtown, sort of, with the buildings up toward the street and so on. But those buildings are 2 stories. Are these 2 stories?
They are not. It's just a higher volume to give you the appearance, because you want to have the signage, and if you get too low of volumes, it's just not more of a modern
Yeah.
look
I'm just
anymore,
thinking, there are offices on the second floors of many of those buildings on PGAs. Have you thought about putting office space in on the second floors of some of these buildings?
So the issue there is parking. So we're about right on required versus proposed. We'd love to have some second floor, but we're just limited on the parking. So, yep. I guess you could double up some of the buildings, but you're going to lose some of the buildings at the east or west end, whichever. So this was kind of a nice spread of getting the parking for each, because that's the other issue too. If you go up to a second floor, you're not going to have enough parking close enough to that building. It's going to be too far, and it won't make sense in inclement weather, things like that. So.
Questions, comments from the board?
Madam Chair, we also have Acting Development Services, Jeff Gagnon, and Economic Development Manager, Dr. Wibby, that will actually supplement the presentation as well.
Oh, okay. You all want to
Madam
wait
Chair?
until, go ahead.
Just in regards to the rendering and the development of what we're looking to actually bring, I think this is something that we would love to see, because we've talked about developing our Broadway corridor, now also our Blue Heron corridor as well. That's the main pipeline that comes into our city. So we need to beautify our project. It's vacant lot right now. The only concern is, I know that we have the canal in the back, so as long as it's not going to have an effect on any of our residents, if we can develop without displacing or causing any issues or problems with our residents that are currently there, I don't see this as an issue of us moving forward with developing our corridors.
Mr. Gagnon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff, and public. My name is Jeff Gagnon, Acting Director of Development Services. I wanted to touch upon some of the, I guess, more technical components that would have to occur in order for the project to move forward. As Mr. Nichols had mentioned before, there are at least 3 additional public hearings that would be required. Our anticipated timeline would begin on December 12th with Planning and Zoning Board review of the project. Following that meeting, there would be 2 more hearings before City Council, being that there's ordinance required to be approved in order for this project to move forward. So there's 4 major components. As touched upon before, the canal abandonment is really the linchpin of the project. In addition to that canal abandonment, there is a future land use map amendment that's required, as well as a zoning map amendment that's required, and then finally the site plan approval. From my perspective and experience, over the past decade, there's been very limited interest in this parcel from any development team. I think we're actually really lucky to have this proposal before us. I think that it's falling in line with what the community is looking for. The development team is and has been willing to meet all of our new land development regulations as far as the landscape package requirements and some of the architectural themes that the residents want to see along the Blue Heron corridor. So we definitely look forward to the project moving forward, and I think it was really a good idea by the city manager to have this workshopped in order to provide the opportunity for additional input from council and public. I know Dr. Wibby has also been working closely on the project as far as some of the economic development matrices. So I don't know if you want to touch upon it briefly right now. I know they were covered in the slide before. I know previously one of the most interesting items that we were discussing before was the abandonment of the canal will actually result in just over an acre of land being moved from what is public right-of-way for the canal into actual real property, which would create taxable value for the city. So that was one talking point that we were going over that seemed very important. So, Dr. Wibby?
So there'll be an acre of developable land. We're sharing talking points. Actually, my talk has probably already been said, but it's my pleasure to present this project. I met Stu a couple of months ago, and he's familiar with the processes of Riviera Beach and is going forward, hopefully, on a very nice contemporary project that will help greatly our economic development. This is a $7 to $10 million project, and the project completion will generate between 50 and 100 jobs, depending on the nature of the tenants that lease the facilities. The tax revenue generated is approximately $190,000 for a $7 million project, or $230,000 for a $10 million project, depending on what the project ultimately costs. The current land value is $477,000, generating $10,788, which this would be a significant increase in tax revenue for the city. There is, at 25 new jobs times $15 an hour, which is about a $31,000 a year salary, along with 25 jobs at about $65,000 a year, is $1,625,000. So 50 new jobs at those estimates would create another $2,405,000 in salaries for people. And with that, people will spend money on food and clothes. I don't know if you know this, but the average family of 4 spends $2,200 on clothes and food. And hopefully we would gain some new residents. We would probably estimate 10 new residents and approximately $2 million in home sales from those 10 new residents. So with all of that, this is a great economic development project for our city, and I look forward to your positive response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Mr. McCoy and then Mr. Lawson.
So, question for Dr. Wimby. The 180 and 230, how is that based on the number of jobs?
That is based on the property tax value from the project.
Okay,
So the jobs are, hopefully, if there's 50 to 100 jobs that will come from these new businesses coming into the city, we anticipate at least that many jobs, 50 to 100 jobs.
okay, so I understand that it would be based on the ad valorem value of the property, but not the number of jobs per se.
Correct, that is
Okay.
correct.
I thought I heard the jobs, but truthfully, I mean, I would hope, and it's my estimation, that it probably a lot more of tax value for
Yeah.
the city, being that this is commercial real estate, and then we got another item on the agenda
Right.
for the purchase of something on Blue Heron, but I was just curious how we arrived at that. That, I think you gave the estimate of based on if it was $7 million
Yep.
in,
It's a range right now for the value of the project. The range is 7 to 10 million. So depending on where they land, that's how much we can expect in taxes.
you mean for the city alone?
Well, it goes to the county, and then we get what we get back. You know, whatever that number is that we get returned back to us.
Okay, so when you say 100 based on $7 million, and then you said 230 based on if it was $10 million,
Right.
is that 230 and that 180 based on what the city would receive or the overall tax?
Overall tax,
Overall ad
yes.
valorem tax revenue?
Correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
all right, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may also, and smile is on my face because they talked about a medical office. We also get tangible personal property. So if there's a X-ray or an MRI machine, you know, those are opportunities to generate
Right.
additional revenue and tax revenue for that tangible personal property. So go out and get the best tenants there is.
Follow up.
Yes.
So question of Mr. Nichols, will this be owner managed or?
I believe you would be managing the leases on the property? Is that? Yep. So yeah, they'd be managed by the owner.
Okay, and Mr. Gagnon, can you speak to, in lieu of us having this, I guess, coverts, instead of having a stormwater canal, what is the impact, or if there's any impact compared to what, I guess, we would typically use that canal for storm drainage?
Right, Councilman, that's a good question. So the intent of piping the canal is that there'd be no net loss of usage, so it would function in the same manner. It just would be buried below ground within a pipe versus having just an open canal. So the use of the canal currently is not for surface water to drain into it. It's really to move water from other areas of the city through the canal system. So this project will have to adhere to all of the water management requirements for this site specific itself, but the canal would be, in essence, well, in my opinion, it's actually being put in a better state than it is currently, because right now we're maintaining it, we're having to mow and clear the canal. Once it's piped, a lot of those maintenance issues will actually be removed from the city and placed on the actual property owner, which would be the applicant before us. So it seems to be a net win for the city.
Madam Chair, if I may, Jeff, has this particular type of development where we have seen a piping system to, in lieu of an open canal for the purposes of surface level parking throughout the city, has this been something that has been approved and has been deployed throughout the city?
I know of one working example that is associated with the FedEx facility. It didn't occur when I was here at the city, so it was prior to this past decade, but that has been successful. It's leased to FedEx, so it's generated revenue to the city, and any sort of maintenance issue has not been a maintenance issue to my knowledge. So again, we're going from this open canal system where it has to be actively mowed and cleared to a channelized system that goes away from those issues.
And to add on to that, in the event that that particular conveyance, canal or what have you is not, we don't find ourselves working out an arrangement, is that property developable? Could you utilize it for anything?
Yeah, I think there's real constraints on the property. depending where you're measuring, the north to south distance is only approximately 100 feet, which it would be very difficult to achieve any sort of real development. One of the biggest holdups is parking requirements, where if you're going to have any sort of real development on that site, you have to have the surface parking in order to really facilitate the use. So that's kind of really the tipping point that we're working on now for the projects, where I know Councilman Botel's question as far as is there a possibility of going up. Really the parking constraint is coming into play. So without going through this abandonment of the canal, I don't foresee this being developed in the near future.
Madam Chair?
I grew up in, just one second, I grew up in the townhouse right there at the corner of Avenue O and Blue Heron, just to the east of where you all are talking right now. When I was younger, that canal was open for a long time, and over the years, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, they closed it in. So wouldn't that be an example of what you would be doing on this side now? Because the water that it obviously is flowing through a pipe, I guess, now on that side. That's the same thing that was done, right?
Right. So the only difference would be ownership and control of it, but as far as the physical look and appearance and what the end result would be, it would be identical to that.
And so if we weren't able to abandon the canal, I know, as we all know, there's quite a few apartments, but I would imagine the parking requirements was much less back then as to how they were able to put those apartments and townhomes there, because we wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to do that on this land under the new requirements.
I've been able to work with some of the projects that were built historically.
Ditch is what
Yeah,
it was.
so in my meeting with the manager, I was like, wait, we've already did this just east of Avenue O, and I remember specifically what I found out was that the portion that you're speaking of behind the townhomes was
Yeah.
initiated by the city to do that field, and I think the city still owns that right of way. This section would be different because I
Yeah.
guess we would be abandoning this to the developer, which brings me to my next point of, just so I can be clear and to be reminded, there are going to be some development agreement standards associated with this abandonment, Mr. Evans?
That is correct, Councilman. This presentation is just to see if the board would entertain such a proposal, and then obviously it has to go through multiple iterations with, planning and zoning, and then ultimately come back to you all twice. But we didn't want to go down this way if the board did not conceivably have the desires to effectively look to abandon the canal. So legal and the development team and staff will work through those issues and bring it back with being able
They've had this easement done where they've laid over the pipe outside of just the FedEx building. What other cities that you can consult with to see?
And this is the difficult question. As far as knowing what the tenant mix is, because we don't know what the final tenant mix is, it's really difficult to project out how the parking is going to work. And this one of the worst case scenario from staff's perspective is a project is approved with not enough parking. However, there's nothing that really stops us from revisiting it once it's
Have them build a second story on that building that we didn't kind of research prior to. I really like the example that Dr. Botel, right, Mr. Hankin? Just a few quick questions, or a local management of the tenants of the property. Would it be possible to partner with the city to give us that commitment to say we're going to partner with the city in hosting these job fairs to help place tenants into these, to place residents into these jobs that are going to be brought to these cities, 50 to 100 new jobs?
So there's two parts to give you a good answer for that. So the first part is, determining what businesses go in there. I would love to, it's really market driven. I can't really, I can say all the businesses I'd like to go in there, but it's kind of difficult to do that. But what I would love to do is create a list of ideal tenants And I'd love to work with council to do that. And once we have a list of ideal tenants that we would like to be there, we can actually reach out to them individually to incorporate them into the site. And then the second part, I'm open. I mean, with the jobs are going to absolutely require, local residents to work there. I'm not sure how that would look. I mean, I don't know how I can ask the businesses to do that, but I would love to, work with you.
Our canals of our land. So it's going to be essential and vital that we can find tenants that are going to fit the need for the city and for the residents.
Sure.
In addition to that, I'd also like to see some type of beautification of that median project as well there. So that coming down Broadway, the median there. So coming down Blue Heron, we can really see kind of the beautification we're looking to actually develop the entire corridor. I think that's it, Madam Chair.
All right, anyone else?
Yes, just a couple. I think they may have already been answered, but I just want to, it's great. I mean, we drive past that ugly old lot every day, and it's fabulous to think that there could be something this beautiful there. So, thanks. I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Wants to come back to you?
Yeah.
All right, anyone else?
Oh, I know. The canal. Sorry, the canal. So I want to be sure now. So if we abandon the canal, which is great, and we should do that, the maintenance of the canal, once we've abandoned it and once it's underground, that's on you, not on us, right? Okay.
Correct. Yep.
It'd be non-existent.
Well, it'll be existent to the extent that it's underground now.
So,
If I could just speak to that, and I know it kind of answers some of Councilman Lawson's comments as well. So Lake Worth Drainage District owns and maintains a lot of the canals around unincorporated Palm Beach County. So for decades, they've been allowing, they have a triple P process, and basically paving, piping, parking. So they allow you to pave over, you culvert, but then you have to, what they call lamping the pipes. So you have to go in and do, basically, it's basically camera footage of what that pipe looks like to make sure that it's maintained, it's open, it doesn't have any cracks, it's not leaking, that it's still allowing the flow to move through. So in a very similar fashion, this would become the maintenance of the property owner, and they would make sure that the cameras are done on whatever period is the best practice for that. So it would become, and again, once it's piped, it lasts for decades. So it's just a matter of making sure that it stays clear, and that would be, but I think the benefit to it is right now, the open cut canals, you have, with the iguana issues and stuff, you constantly have to maintain those slopes, and otherwise they're collapsing, you're losing storage volume. With the pipe, it kind of stays in perpetuity, so.
My only concern is it's on you, not on us to maintain it.
Correct, yep.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, is it safe to assume that it is appropriate for staff to work with the development team to effectuate what they are requesting, consistent with the dialogue that has occurred here this evening?
Yes, we have a consensus
Yes.
for them to,
Definitely, Madam Chair.
you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, yes. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much, we're really
Appreciate
looking
it.
forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Public hearings. Ordinance on first reading.
Madam Chair, the time is now 7:34.
It surely is. Time flew by. All right. Public comment should be restricted to issues, matters, or topics pertinent to the city of Riviera Beach. Please be reminded that the City Council has adopted rules of decorum governing public conduct during official meetings, which has been posted at the entrance of the council chambers. In an effort to preserve order, if any of the rules are not adhered to, the council chair may have any disruptive speaker or attendee removed from the podium, from the meeting, and/or building if necessary. Please govern yourselves accordingly.
Madam Chair, the acceptance of public comment cards for this particular section of the agenda is now closed. Lloyd Brown, Alan Schultz, Doretta Polk.
My name is Lloyd Brown, and
Good evening.
seems like they can sell y'all ice in Alaska. You know, you let these people come in, we don't need that developed right there, right now. You know what? Our avenue floods out right now. So you close the canal off, and I know the volume of water going through the pipes not going to be like the volume of water going through those canals. So you should talk to all those people on our avenue down there, because when it rained, I done rode through there. I had a truck, it was like a 4-wheel drive. It was up to my doors. So now you telling me, Lofton, that would be a good idea? You don't even live here. I lived here all my life. All my life, 65 years I've been here. And all I've seen is everything that comes in Riviera Beach doesn't help the black people at all. At all. Everything you do. This man talking about, he couldn't even tell you who's going to be in there and who's going to hire what. He's so confused, he's like a dog running behind his tail. He couldn't tell you squat. And y'all going to take and let them develop right there? Ask the people first. I think we should have a vote on that from the people of the city. I don't think you should put anything there. The Imperials over there, they don't have any businesses in there that hire any blacks. I'm not talking about hiring people. I'm talking about blacks that live here. We look like we don't even care about the people who live in Riviera Beach. We don't want that there. And I know it floods out because I done rode through there. And he talking about covering up the canal. Is he crazy? I mean, this man right here, he talking about he built some houses. Ask him how many houses he built with people who live in Riviera Beach. Because I done seen the houses he built around here. And I haven't seen not one black person working in these houses. So he's doing nothing to help, only himself. And I think Gagnon getting his pocket line, whether I'm wrong or right, I don't care. I'm just going to tell him the way it is. That's the way I feel about it. Because it's wrong. It's wrong. You shouldn't build anything along that corridor. We don't want to become like Jupiter. Because all those places in Jupiter, you don't see any of those blacks in Jupiter's actually working there and living there or whatever. I mean, he make it sound so good and so clear. I mean, but y'all take anything. They can shove anything on you. I mean, you know, it's like you can be living somewhere and somebody could tell you they'll sell you the bridge in Tampa and you probably will buy it. That's just how stupid you are. And I understand, I mean stupid. We don't need it there. It floods out on our avenue. You need to talk to the people on our avenue before you make any discussion about closing that canal, because I know a canal holds a greater volume than a pipe. And I mean, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I know this. And we don't need that there. This man right here, he need to take his shit and go somewhere else. Excuse me.
Thank you.
Alan Schultz, Doretta Polk.
Just for the record, I think when a hurricane comes, you're going to have a hell of a flood there. Good evening, Alan Schultz, Riviera Beach resident, business owner, and past co-chair of Riviera Beach Workforce Development Task Force. I'm here again tonight because the final invoice for my contracted 2019 Workforce Development Services, which Mr. Evans requested, remains unpaid, and it appears Mr. Evans is hell-bent on stonewalling my legitimate requests for payment. I've made numerous attempts to answer Mr. Evans' questions, provide additional information and documents, and other evidence supporting the fact that despite Mr. Evans' claims that my consulting arrangement was verbal, I have a purchase order dated February 22, 2019, which clearly states that my arrangement was contractual. Mr. Evans, at every step you have attacked my honesty, credentials, and integrity by suggesting things like, there is a reasonable basis, quote, to believe some of the work product Mr. Schultz referred to may belong to an employee of the city. BS. And that services may have been rendered that their quality and quantity are subjective. Are you serious? Have you done any due diligence? Council, Mayor, Mr. Evans, what narrative and message do you think these actions telegraph to our business community, developers, and potential investors in this city? I, for one, have gone full circle with Riviera Beach, and it's now the last place on earth, the last place I would recommend a business get involved with. I would advise the business community, developers, and business investors to look elsewhere. Based on my own firsthand experience, this city's words and commitments, past, present, and future, mean nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, I'd be willing to wager that compared to other cities of our size, Riviera Beach may be one of the most litigious cities in the country. Borrowing from President Reagan, the scariest words a new or existing business in our community will ever hear are, I'm from the city of Riviera Beach, and I'm here to help. And Julie, your silence, Julie, has been deafening. You've allowed Mr. Evans to attack my credibility, spew completely false statements, and you've never come up once to defend me. Despite all the work I put up and work with you side by side for the things that you preach about every week, talking about how happy you are that this or that happened and the success and so on. You've all made me burn the boats. I'm moving forward, and I'm going to be here at every council meeting, everyone, reminding everyone that Mr. Evans and Botel's reprehensible behavior. And separately, I'm going to be seeking justice in court.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Thank you.
Doretta Polk, Erica Davis.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Doretta Polk, and I would just like to come to the podium to speak concerning Vive, I think it's Vive 95, a radio station. We thank you so much for, they were handing out turkeys this weekend at the marina, along with, they said that some of the council on the diocese helped also with the donations, and thank you so much. And I was also wanted to talk concerning Mr. Blankenship. He's doing a marvelous, him and Mrs. Gwen Oates doing a marvelous job for the citizens and also the youth. Now, I don't know if someone has an agenda concerning Mr. Blankenship, but he's doing a phenomenal job there. And I hope that his job will not be in any kind of disarray, because we definitely need Mr. Blankenship to stay on the job, to take care of the citizens, senior citizens, and the youth. Concerning also Ms. Grimsley, the youth empowerment, she is also doing a marvelous job with the youth. And if also, she's losing over $100-something thousand in her program. So if you all can see concerning with our water, and also with her giving some of your stipend money to help out for the youth, because this is our people of the tomorrow who's going to be here to take care of the city. And I thank you, Mr. Evans, Jonathan Evans, for stating that, yes, the applications for a discount for the water, it is cumbersome and it's intrusive also. A lot of senior citizens are finding it very difficult in applying with the paperwork. So if you all can look over that and see if you can change and make it simpler, just a little simple for our citizens, that would be great. Oh, and another thing, I know Mr. Evans is also working on our light situation on 20th Street and Broadway. And if we can have a community sit-down discussion with Ravovich concerning that and concerning our concerns before they turn this light, just shut it off, all right? And I think that's about it. I thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Erica Davis.
Good evening, Erica Davis, Riviera Beach. I just want to speak on the gentleman that just left here. I think that project is excellent. It costs a lot of money to build projects, especially when it's coming out of their own pocket. And the renderings are very expensive, so I think that the project should stay the way it is. It's a beautiful project. It will, you can do small businesses there. We don't really need any more apartment renting on the top because we have apartments going on Broadway. So we need a business district right there on Broadway. So I think that being that they're paying for it, we shouldn't be telling them what they need to be doing with their money. If they want to build here, they're the owners of the property, and you should pass it because it's a very nice project. And that's it. So we can get some kind of development going. But other than that, if it's not a government project, it's none of your business of what they're going to do and how they're going to spend their money. That's the way I feel about it. So I think the project is nice, and we need to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that concludes public comment.
All right. Item number 4.
Madam Chair, would you like for me to,
I'm sorry, yes, yes.
specific to the appropriation or the monies that Ms. Grimsley is slated to not receive in subsequent years to the tune of $198,000. Dr. Wibby has worked with Ms. Jacobs to put in an appropriation request from the state legislature to assist in funding that particular program. Also, we did have productive conversations with Senator Scott's office and Senator Rubio's office about them also writing letters of support on the program to Palm Beach County to assist in continuing the funding for the program as it has provided for tangible results that we all know to be a great program, and I know the county knows that as well. So we are trying to find ways to continue the funding for that program and even enhance the funding for that program. And I believe Dr. Wibby's appropriation request was to the tune of $300,000, if I'm not mistaken, for that particular item. Also, if I can have Public Works Interim Director, Mr. Terrence Bailey, to come up and speak specifically to the light situation. Him and I have had some conversations, and there has been information that has been proffered to us that may be counter to the conversations that previous councils have had as a result of the engineering information that they've provided, but staff certainly can move in the direction to see if there's an opportunity to facilitate a conversation or a presentation from FDOT and the county for that matter. Mr. Bailey?
Evening, Mayor, Council, Terrence Bailey, Public Works Director. After, I think, 2 council meetings ago, the comment was made in reference to the light at 20th and Broadway. Following that request, I inquired with the Florida Department of Transportation in reference to the continued use of that light and that it was going to stay, as previously agreed approximately 5 years ago when Rivovich initially proposed the new light at 22nd Street. That sort of set off a cascading series of emails to which the Palm Beach County, who maintains and operates the signal system throughout the county, and the DOT to start a new warrant study. A warrant study is the actual analysis on whether a signal is warranted at a particular location. They look at density, business patterns, traffic trip analysis, and things of that nature to see if you have enough turning motion where a light is warranted. Recently, I believe within the last 10 days, the warrant study came back and indicated that there is not enough trip volume to warrant the light at 20th Street. And I indicated to them that there was a previous agreement between the city and the DOT that that light would stay. The issue now is, I believe there was an accident that hit one of the lights, one of the poles that the lights were on, and in their effort to have to pay the cost to replace it, that is when the county decided to really look at, well, why is this light here versus spending the money to replace a pole that was damaged. And that also kicked off the warrant study. Right now, we are sort of in between emails. I've indicated clearly to the DOT and the county that this community has a great expectation that that intersection will remain signalized. Mr. Evans, as mentioned, we are leaning with as much pressure as we have at our avail to let them know the concerns of the community on that signal. But again, it is a DOT road, and it is Palm Beach County who maintains those signals. So we are in process of clearly expressing the will of the public that that light needs to stay.
Now, so they said the 22nd intersection was warranted for a light? Because there's less traffic go to that area than 20th.
Well, going back 5 years, remember the situation with the development of Rivovich and that land acquisition and closing a number of the streets changed the traffic pattern, and it was agreed to put the new light at 22nd Street to allow Rivovich and the long boats and their operation to function better. Everyone was in agreement that that was fine as long as we leave the light at 20th Street, which more facilitates the residential traffic from the residents who had it there for all these generations. That was the agreement. Revitch can have the light at 22nd for their operations, and the city and residents would keep the light at 20th and Broadway. Well, again, now that a lot of people have gone, there's a lot of transition, and somebody damaged one of the poles, the county is asking, why should we pay for a pole on a signal that doesn't have a warrant to be there?
So the stance that the city is taking is that if it is the desires of the board, we can certainly put a letter together communicating that we would, at minimum, like to have a public conversation with them because there has been significant concerns that have been placed or significant calls that have been received by the city manager's office concerning this particular item, and that it warrants some type of public forum or some type of discussion before this process concludes. So staff is asking for direction if the board would be so inclined to allow for me to send a letter on behalf of the elected body to request that the county provide an FDOT attend one of our upcoming meetings to provide an update with regards to the rationale behind that and see if there's any way to reconsider their previous position.
I would be in support of it. I know this has been a conversation that's been going on for a few years now, so I would be in support of that because there are several people, I mean, not several people, but a number of people that are having issues with it, and so, and the words changed. I mean, one minute they said it was going to stay, they weren't going to bother it, and so I just think it would be only fair if they explain that themselves as to why it's not needed. Anyone else?
I agree, we should ask them at least to come and tell us why they won't do it. I mean, clearly our people want it, and we should push for it.
Anyone else? Everyone okay with it moving forward? All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Item number 4.
Resolution number 11419, a resolution of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, adopting $15 per hour as the new livable wage for all city employees in positions within city government and encouraging all other employers within the city to consider increasing wages to meet the $15 per hour threshold and provide for an effective date. Madam Chair, we do have a public comment card on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
Do we do a vote?
We need a motion, Madam Chair.
We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Mr. Evans?
Madam Chair and members of the board, this item is to see if the board would be inclined to approve a minimum wage of, or a livable wage of $15 per hour in light of the national conversations that have occurred, as well as looking to increase the per capita personal income in our city, which is a little less than $25,000 per year. When we look at the job duties and responsibilities for individuals in this agency, we think that a livable wage of $15 per hour is warranted, considering that these individuals that would see this raise, there's a total of 15 positions, are the lowest paid employees within the city of Riviera Beach. This would be a significant impact to them, as it would show that the organization believes in their value to the agency. One of the citywide's organizational goals was that operational excellence and to ensure that our employees are compensated fairly and equitably. This resolution, if passed, would cost the city approximately $5,000, and staff is recommending approval of resolution 114-19 to adopt $15 per hour as a livable wage for all full-time and part-time positions within the city of Riviera Beach, and we stand to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. My public comment? Okay, go ahead.
Doretta Polk.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Well, Ms. Polk's coming up. Mr. Evans, will this take effect immediately for all positions?
Upon adoption of this, yes, sir, it will take effect.
Okay, so all current advertised positions will be changed to 15 from what they are?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Doretta Polk. I'm a resident of Riviera Beach. Concerning this, I think that these people do need a raise of $15 an hour to have to live off of whatever they are making. It's how do you live off of that? These people are very much deserving. They're out there in the elements every day, and these are the probably people that's making less than $15 an hour. And even if someone working inside the city, they still need to make $15 an hour. Because how do you live and take care of your children and your family? And this utility bill, water bill, paying that. How can we do that? Yes, I hope that you do pass this and help the citizens of Riviera Beach. And another thing concerning raise, I know the police department was asking for a raise, but I want to know if the city has accreditation. Does the police department, is it now accredited? And then, you know, when I went to my supervisors and my managers before I retired, I went to them and wanted to raise. I always said, this is what I have done. I've taken extra classes and did all CEUs, everything that I had to do. And I came to her and said, look what I could bring to the table and help out this unit. Now, do some of these officers, do they have criminal justice degrees? I mean, when you have that behind you, because I have a degree, and everything accolades you have, that's when you move up the chain. And I would suggest that, and maybe they can, you know, and I think they do deserve a raise, some of them. But the situation with that canine dog and the situation now that we're having with these two other officers, shameful, shameful. But there's always bad apples wherever it is, and whatever career, there's always going to be some bad apples, and not all of them are like that, you know. But I do think that if they do want a raise, they should see if they can bring something to the table and show this is why I need a raise. I have done this, that, and the other to improve my skills for the police department. And I don't think that's too much to ask, you know? And I thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes.
All right, comments, questions from the board?
Yes,
Go ahead.
Mr. Manager. So I asked for some classification information and I didn't get it. And I imagine because it was short notice, but I got quite a few questions for you and perhaps even the finance director regarding this. I'm looking and it appears that there's probably about, how many people would you think? Is it 13 or 15?
15 total positions.
Well, here's what I want to say, and certainly I'm not opposed to going to $15 an hour, but ironically, over the weekend, I gotten calls from people who actually make 16, 17 bucks an hour, and they told me about how long it took them to get to that point, and now just to arbitrarily raise everybody up to 15, they're essentially paid in years now to get to that $16 amount, and then now we're moving everybody up. Now, members, if you can remember correctly, this was the same concern that I brought up October 2nd, and I wanted to kind of think more comprehensively as to how we address all of the disparities in these positions, because you essentially have individuals that have been here for several years, and I'm looking at the spreadsheet, and because I don't want to get in specifics as to who those people are, I don't want to kind of identify a person and what their salary may be, but I was hoping that we would have some sort of plan to not just adopt a minimum, because when I'm seeing many of these people are like $14.70 some odd cents an hour, but how we address the entire workforce at the city. And I think that's going to probably segue into our later conversation about the bonus structure that we're proposing. But what I did not see in that 15 employees was the number of employees that's covered under the youth employment program who we currently pay. And I wanted to find out what their salaries were relative to this.
What youth employment program?
I'm sorry, empowerment, youth empowerment. Well, I guess that's even a fair question too, when we did have youth employment.
I cannot, Madam Chair, I can't speak specifically on the summer youth program and how the compensation structure was identified or how it was.
Well, Mr. Evans, I'm sorry. I misspoke when I said employment. I mean empowerment. Those that work under Valerie Grimsley that currently get paid to participate in that program.
Mr. Sherman may be able to pull up that information on his computer. But I did want to speak specifically to the employees that are making $16 an hour or $17 an hour. When we looked at this particular process, we looked at the opportunity to get people in lower level positions to a point where they're being compensated at a livable wage. Most cities in Palm Beach County has already adopted this as a standard. Also, one of the things that we would be looking to bring forward, as previously communicated, is the compensation and classification study to look at where people sit within the agency, and then moving forward to go ahead and attempt to address some of the inequities within that system. The other side of it is there is already $300,000 that has been set aside for the purposes of addressing some inequities in the compensation and classification structure in the agency. But I can tell you specifically, if we want to talk about some inequities in the compensation system, today was the final interview for a procurement director. The range for the procurement director is below some of the positions that we have as managers and supervisors within respective departments, and this person is going to be handling $70 million worth of transactions that come out of the city. So there is inequities throughout the city system, and we are going to have to go in there and with a scalpel clean up some of those issues throughout the agency. We believe that if we want to address the issues that we've communicated socially in our community about the per capita personal income, and we have a small handful of employees that we're really talking, most of them are maybe $13, maybe the lowest or what have you, one at $14.78. Some of these employees' peers are going to see an incremental increase of a couple cents an hour, but I think it shows that the agency is making the necessary steps to address the compensation issues and say that there's not a job in the agency that somebody should be compensated less than $15 an hour. I would love to have the conversation with any employee that thinks that they should be compensated more. We're looking at revamping the tuition reimbursement process and credentials and allow for them to move up in the agency so they can continue to grow with the city. So this was just, I saw some situations where looking at a few positions in the organization and looking at the titles of those positions that I thought if we are going to value our employees, which is one of the things that the board has identified as your core priority, that paying them a livable wage of $15 an hour was something that the board would want to see move forward. So that's how we got to this particular point.
Follow.
Go ahead.
And actually, I just went back to the minutes of 10-2, and specifically, the chair said she's particularly cautious about randomly picking positions to bring up to par, whereas there may be several of these positions that need to. But just because we don't have what is right versus what's already there, I totally understand where you're coming from with the Assistant Public Works Director. And I only reference that specifically because when I look at the spreadsheet of the number of people, I mean, one person is going from $4.75 to $15. That's essentially 25 cents more per hour. I'm sorry, $14.75. So they're ultimately increasing 25 cents. And I certainly want to do it, but Mr. Evans, we have to really look at the bigger picture here, because this compression issue becomes really serious right now. And then again, I go back to the litigation issue in our attorney's office, and like I've just found out, I guess that's out on the street now. So I support it, but I wanted some assurances as to what we're going to do forward, because it's been over a month since we brought that last conversation up, and then almost approaching 2 months since we passed the budget. So we should have a more comprehensive conversation.
And Councilman, to your point, December 2nd is the first day of the new Human Resources Director, starting with the agency, who has copious amounts of experience in compensation and classification. And I thought it would be in good keeping to allow for this unbiased third party that is, in essence, joining the team to look at our compensation strategies. Because to your point, there is compression throughout the organization, and we need to address it. But when we looked at, the lower level employees, the employees that are out there in inclement weather and those types of things, we thought that this would be a good starting point for us to say, this is our livable wage. And then from there, we can look at compensation throughout the organization and look at some, we have 3 collective bargaining contracts that are going to be coming up before us. We're currently negotiating with the police department. So, our employees are our most valuable resource, and for a cost of less than $5,000, we can get some of our employees up to par. But we will have that more comprehensive discussion that you're speaking of once the HR director, it starts with the agency.
Question.
Go ahead.
So when you say 5,000, are we considering the additional FICA portion that we would add in, and also the, I guess, the additional pension contribution?
We can calculate that but since it's such a small number amongst all the 15 employees, the number is really de minimis, but we can provide that to the council as to what the actual impact would be.
It would seem de minimis now that I see that most of these people are just under $15 an hour. But I just, I want to see us kind of address the entire, and I'm looking at employee numbers, so I would think that represents on when a person started, but one person here has a number that's in a whole different 1,000 categories. So that would lead me to believe that they started well ahead of some of these other individuals. My question is, and that's why it was important for me to see the classification so I can see what those minimums are for certain positions. So if it's a maintenance 1 position, and are raises offered to employees every year? And if that's the case, is it not uniform for full-time versus part-time? So there's a lot of questions that I had regarding.
And some of it depends on which collective bargaining unit they're in. Most recently pinpointed, but we know that compensation is a challenge for us as an organization. And I also look at it from the standpoint, in the event that those positions are vacated, it is hard to get somebody to come in and work in a government job for under $15 an hour. It helps on the recruitment side once those positions effectively transition.
Madam Chair.
Were you done, Mr. McCoy?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, I totally agree with the $15 an hour. We're talking about $5,000 or $6,000. We've done here at the city. We do know this. I thank Mr. Evans for being able to at least start the process of looking at compensation. And I think this is the first start with doing that. So with that being said, Madam Chair, I'd like to call the question.
Follow up.
Was there anyone else that wanted to make any comments? How you gonna follow up?
Because I just want to put her in, I knew this was going to come up, and I pulled those minutes, what she said, when I brought the same exact item when it came to the issue of reclassifying that attorney position. So, Councilwoman Lanier, you specifically said there are other positions that I see that can go either way, and to pick 1 or 2 positions to make a decision on one position among others that we have. We're going to have a conversation in our legislature.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
No.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with Councilperson McCoy dissenting.
Item number 5.
Resolution, the proposed purpose of developing a municipal services complex, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the contract for purchase of said property, authorizing the director of finance to make payment of $1.3 million plus applicable closing costs for project number 18089 and provide
Concerning the potential acquisition of the 1.93 acres that's adjacent to the Public Works Complex, On July 29th, 2019, I did provide a memorandum to the council about the possibility of a public services complex. Staff did discuss about the feasibility of acquiring this particular parcel. This parcel would be extremely valuable to the city, as it would allow for us to have a municipal services complex where we can consolidate both the utility district and the public works facilities on one particular site. So once the new facility for the district is constructed, we can vacate the existing site that the property is on. This would allow for us to have appraisals. We do see that this is the first step in for it to ensure that there's no intrusion or the appropriate individuals do not have access, or only the appropriate individuals have access to the particular site. The monies for the property would be taken from the monies that we have set aside for the Public Works Complex, and staff is recommending approval for us to move forward with the acquisition of this particular parcel. And Staff Director, he must have left the room. The funding sources for the parcel is out of the capital monies that have been set aside for the Public Works Complex. So it's articulated in the capital budget.
Follow up, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
And do we also have a schedule project delivery for this potential project?
What we would like to do is, if we are able to move forward with closing on this particular parcel, then we would work with the design team of bringing some schematic designs to the board for consideration, and then effectively going through the process to move forward with the administrative facilities concurrently while we're looking for the necessary steps to do the test wells and the studying and the sampling that's required to move forward with the new treatment plant. So there's a lot of elements that are going to be running concurrently after we're able to effectively close on this property, both looking at how do we develop the public works side and the utility district side, because we want to move forward with those projects concurrently, because we believe that there is some savings with not having to deploy multiple contractors to move forward with the project.
Follow up, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Evans, if we're using the fund source 18089, which is the Public Works, but we're using the site for a combination of utility district and Public Works, why is it that we're using that funding for the utility district potential project?
You would see, as utility district projects start to come to fruition on that site, that we would utilize the USD funding. So the monies for the property acquisition, the frontage, is the capital monies that are set aside for the Public Works Complex. In conversations with the finance director, there is some projects in the USD that are priority projects that still need to move forward. And in the event that we were to unfund those projects, our concern was there's some other priority projects that would have to go by the wayside. So the most expedited way to move forward with property acquisition is utilizing the money that's there for the Public Works Complex. And then as we bring other elements of the utility district online, then funding would be able to be secured, whether it's through the federal agencies or a bond issuance to go forward with the other projects. So you will see blended funding associated with the entire facility as it's developed.
Do we see any delays or any issues if we take funding from our Public Works to put immediately? What do we have outstanding for 2020, 2021 that these funds are actually supposed to be used for? Because essentially we're blending them, but we're going to be looking for grants or funding to help with the utility district to reimburse that account. But essentially, what do we have that this money is supposed to be allocated for?
Mr. Sherman, if you can speak specifically on the monetary aspects for the Public Works facility and how much is set aside for that project.
Sure. Raina Sherman, Finance Director. Yeah, that Public Works project has actually been on the books for a number of years now, going back to even before the property at Avenue L was raised. Remember, at one time, Public Works was going to move over to 13th Street. And then the decision was made to leave it at Avenue L. So that's when we budgeted money to put the facility actually back at Avenue L. Being what it is, that project is never kicked off, but that's really what those dollars are there for. So again, the idea is, because this is coming in fairly short notice, USD hasn't budgeted money for land acquisition, and we know the plant and what else is, a number of years down the line. The Public Works funds are available, so we'll purchase the property, make it a city parcel, and then ultimately, as Mr. Evans said, as we progress, as we develop the parcel, go into construction, then we'll determine, just like we do on the road projects, who's paying what share, and then, ultimately it'll all get trued up at the end.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Mr. Evans. Mr. Sherman, I absolutely am supportive of us moving forward, buying as much parcels as we can. So whatever land that we can purchase, I want the city to own as much land as possible in our city. So I'm definitely in support of us buying this land if we have the funding available for it, so that we can develop it for city usage.
And Madam Chair, if I may, Councilman Lawson, to your point, this also, when we talk about a P3 opportunity, by consolidating the site, it effectively allows for us to clear out that entire site where the existing utility district is, and so that adds another large portion, and we don't have to acquire another site for Public Works or for the USD, because the footprint for a new water plant is significantly smaller. So you have a situation where you would have a beautiful building that would front Blue Heron right across potentially from this development that we saw earlier, to really start creating some synergy in that Blue Heron corridor. So what we want to do is have the building front the roadway to really consolidate or to conceal everything else behind it, so you wouldn't necessarily see it or the operational elements until you came to the back off of Avenue L.
So essentially, what would be fronting on Blue Heron would be the Public Works building.
It would be the administrative building, and what we would do is probably house certain elements of both Public Works operations, admin, and utility district admin and operations in that building.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
All right, anyone else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, excuse me, Mr. Manager, I understand that there was 3 appraisals.
That is correct.
Which one did the city pay for?
The city paid for the appraisal that had the property come back at $1.2 million.
And is that the Allen Edmondson or is that the Anderson car?
That is, I will tell you.
Well, I guess it doesn't really matter.
The first appraisal that was conducted, that the city had the firm came back with the property appraisal of $1.2 million. I offered $1.2 million to the property owner and said that effectively I'm not in favor or inclined in bringing forward a request for purchase outside of the appraisal. However, if you would like to pay for 2 or 3 or 4 independent appraisals by certified outfits, then we can have a discussion and negotiate in between of those 2 particular appraisals. When we looked at both appraisals that were provided by the property owner, they were basically within the same threshold. So we looked at our appraisal would probably be the outlier, plus the firm that we utilize is more of a boutique firm. And this appraisal, the 2 appraisal companies that we have received appraisals for this property would probably be the companies that I would recommend that we would consider utilizing for future appraisals on properties that the city is looking to acquire or looking to dispose of.
Okay, well, it kind of seems from the 2 that I've seen in the backup, I believe it's Allen Edmondson, and the other one was Parrish, and even Anderson Carr. All of them alluded to that the highest and best use was to maintain it as general commercial and not specific for utility. And I wanted to see, or even public purpose for that matter. Obviously, there was a lot of, I guess, reference to mixed use and some of those other compatible uses relative to residential and commercial development. So I want to understand, how do we reconcile or even negotiate the two? Because we're a bit far off, and that leads me to my other question. Was there any other consideration of?
To your point, Councilman, the one concern that we had with respect to if we decided to just utilize the public works site to construct the new utility district, that's all for, we don't know what that number would have been, and we think that there would be some benefits for economies to scale, because if I have them on, if it's on one site, I can have one large break room, I can have one large kitchen, I can have, you know, shower and locker room facilities, et cetera, versus a situation where I have multiple facilities all over the city. And so that's the intent behind trying to acquire that parcel, is to assemble it for the purposes of consolidating the time in which staff is driving to different sites. Because right now, we have challenges when we leave the Public Works complex to go to HR at the Port Center or coming, and I can tell you the property owner has already has plans and designs to move forward with a project on that particular parcel. So we were able to effectively negotiate within those appraisals prices to get us to where we thought is a fair and equitable number. And we see a lot of value to that parcel, because anyone that would acquire that parcel besides the city would have to live with a water treatment facility right behind them. And that would have a significant impact on, obviously, the availability or the value of that parcel. And I think it's important for us to have a staple building on that Broadway corridor. I think it sets the tone for what our expectation is for development. So that frontage, I think, is extremely valuable, and it's perfect that it does abut our particular existing facility.
Anything else?
So my question was there any, I mean, did we solely look at that portion because of Public Works?
Yes, sir, because it was adjacent to the Public Works site.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it?
Yes.
Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Item number 6.
Resolution number 11219, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Riviera Beach, Palm Beach County, Florida, awarding professional service agreements to Palm Beach County selected vendors by cooperative purchase agreement in accordance with ordinance number 4010, section 9-101, and resolution 11917 for Palm Beach County annual demolition contract project number 18341, commodity code 90900, building construction services general 91300, construction services heavy, and 91240, demolition services to provide needed construction and demolition services on an as-needed basis, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement, awarding the demolition of Fire Station 88 to Arbor Tree and Land, Inc., doing business as ATL Diversified Industries, in the amount of $33,500 from project number 18034, authorizing the city manager to approve change orders up to 10%, authorizing the Director of Finance and Administrative Services to make payment for same from project number 18034, and providing for an effective date. Madam Chair, we do not have public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, we have a motion.
Second.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, if I can have interim Public Works Director, Mr. Terrence Bailey, present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, Mayor and Council. At the previous City Council meeting, we discussed this item thoroughly in our attempt to raise the building at Fire Station 88 and get it demolished as soon as possible. We've entered in a cooperative purchase agreement with an existing contract from Palm Beach County, which will provide the city access to 9 different vendors for this service over the course of the contract. We were able to acquire 4 prices from the vendors on that list, and this resolution is to authorize the cooperative purchase agreement, execute contracts, and award the first work order to demolish the Fire Station 88 building. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Do we have any public comment cards? I didn't
No,
hear.
Madam
us.
Chair.
No, thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk?
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson is out. That motion is approved. Councilperson Miller Anderson out.
Madam Chair, if I may, and before Mr. Bailey leaves, it is extremely important if we can have the resolution executed by the board this evening concerning this particular item, as it will be able to allow for us to expedite the demolition of the structure, because Director Bailey has promised us that our Christmas present would be that that building would be down if we can get the resolution executed
I wanted the new
tonight.
water plant by Christmas, Mr. Manager.
Yeah.
It won't take as long as a compensation study, but
Hey,
no, I
Vacation for 15
did, as
months.
requested, sir, I reached out to the vendor, the parent low vendor today, notifying them of the potential action of this board. And as soon as they get a contract and a purchase order, they will be able to turn in, they need a demolition permit from the city. That's why I gave you a pause, but you can completely affect that timeline, sir. And there is a health department process for demolishing buildings. Obviously, we already have an asbestos survey that came back clean, and they have to turn that into Palm Beach County Health Department, and there's about a 10-day process for the health department also to vet all of our documents and data. That will start as soon as the contracts, as you mentioned, are executed and a purchase order is issued, preferably tomorrow, if not Wednesday, and that will start the clock. We are tentatively looking at the middle, worst case, the middle of December, but depending on their holiday, we will obviously keep you well informed, because I know you're going to want to be there when the first piece falls down and the dust flies and the ribbons and the hats and that'll all get scheduled through the manager's office. Thank you.
Well, we'll give you to New Year's Eve.
Pardon?
Okay.
All right, so I heard you all did the fast track here while I was out, but okay. Discussion and deliberation. Number 7.
Request to close the library on Saturday, November 30th, 2019, in observance of the Thanksgiving holidays. Madam Chair, we do not have any public comment cards on this item. The acceptance of public comment cards on this item is now closed.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, I will present this item, and then staff can provide any additional perspective. Since there is a change of service or a level of service modification, we did want to get authorization from the council to consider closing the library on Saturday, November 30th. This is in observance to the Thanksgiving holiday. This has been done in previous years, so staff is here this evening to request that the board allow for staff to close the library on Saturday, November 30th, 2019.
All right, any questions or comments from the board? All right, Madam Clerk. Oh, you need a
Madam Chair,
motion.
this is
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Board appointments, item number 8.
Reappointment of 2 members on the city's Library Advisory Board.
Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, if I can have our Assistant Library Director provide a presentation on this item.
Good evening, Amy Dickinson, Assistant Director to the library. The library is in receipt of 2 requests for reappointment of current board members. Those items were received from board members Ms. Irene Jackson from District 2 and Mr. Delano Allen from District 3. These parties have acted on the Library Advisory Board since October of 2015 and would like to continue their service. Their requests have been provided to you for your review and consideration, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from the board? All right, we need a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Councilperson Lawson.
Yes.
Councilperson Lanier.
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy.
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel.
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Thank you. Discussion by City Manager, item number 9.
Citywide Holiday Payment Program.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this item before you is to seek authorization from the City Council in lieu of having a holiday party for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I've had the opportunity to do an ad hoc survey with probably about a dozen employees. The question was posed, do you like the holiday festivities that we have as far as the large lunch for Thanksgiving and Christmas? Or would you be more inclined to accept $50 for a full-time employee or $25 for a part-time employee? And the responses were overwhelming. The employees would prefer to receive the gift card of $50 and $25. We have also encouraged employees that if they wanted to have potlucks within their departments, that they are able to do so, but that is at their cost. It's not something that the city would expend. In previous years, the city has expended about $20,000 to hold those events. Plus, we have a lot of employees that are on shift work that are unable to attend, and then you lose a lot of productivity associated with the process of having those particular events. And so in lieu of that, I think the employees would appreciate the gesture of having a $50 gift card for full-time and $25 gift card for part-time. If approved, Mr. Sherman would move forward to acquire those, and then we would also like to work with each council member for you to, in essence, adopt a department and be there to hand out the gift cards to the employees as they appreciate the work that this board is doing. So at this moment, staff recommends approval of the item before you this evening.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Question, comment?
The city spent 20 grand on Christmas parties?
Decorations.
I cannot confirm nor deny that. I wasn't here, but I've heard that it's a pretty
I want to know, do we count as
expansive
full-time or
shindig.
part-time?
I know, right? Kidding.
So when you say gift cards, what exactly is the gift card?
So Mr. Sherman would acquire a Visa gift card whereby the employee would sign, and then they, of course, would be taxed associated with that, versus a situation, we were looking at doing checks, but then we would have to remove all the direct deposits citywide to be able to issue checks. So the alternative solution was a gift card. So it would be a Visa gift card for all the employees.
I'll take the utility district.
Well, can I finish? Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
So here's what I was kind of thinking. So how many employees are we talking?
Part-time and full-time employees, I think
in the
it's
backup.
400
It's on
and
there. It's in the backup. 400 and some, 56?
I believe, yes.
Okay.
And part-time
50,
56.
yeah.
And what amount does that come up to?
The total, it's like 24,000. So the cost for the gift card is 25,000
So
versus,
a little bit more.
but you don't lose any productivity. And the other side of it is with firefighters being on different shift and police officers being on shift and USD, you had a lot of employees that wouldn't attend. The fire chief and I had a conversation, a third of his employees never get to attend because of the shift work associated with it. So they would prefer the gift card versus the chicken and salad or turkey and salad.
I understand that. So my next question is, so we as individual council members wouldn't be permitted to use our allocated budget to purchase gift cards, but we can ratify a decision as a body to direct staff to go out and give everyone a gift card?
I would have to defer to the finance directors as how we would handle that particular process, because we did have the conversation about that an employee would have to sign and put their employee number or those kind of things, and then obviously they would pay for the taxes associated with that. That was the cleanest way, as opposed to a process of the special checks where we'd have to remove the payroll. Mr. Sherman, is there any issues associated with that? I know the biggest concern with gift cards is making sure that it is taxed, and we have a mechanism to effectively ensure that the employees would have to pay taxes on the gift cards.
Correct. Now, if approved tonight, we will contact the bank first thing in the morning and order through TD Bank. They're already on notice, and it'll take hopefully less than a week to get them, so they'll be available hopefully Monday, but if not, certainly before the holiday. We will take the cards, we will break them out by all, the departments and employee counts and make sure that they're all handed out to the appropriate people and signed off on.
So my question was, as individual members of the body, are we permitted to use our budgeted funds to go out and purchase gift cards for what we believe are deserving employees?
As individual counsel, I
think
think that would be dangerous
Yeah.
No,
personally.
the answer is no.
Yeah.
No, we
So-
can't.
so-
So how can we authorize it?
So what's your answer, Mr. Sherman?
Yeah, I wouldn't advise that you do
But-
that.
But my question is, so what you're saying is that while we can't do it individually, we can vote collectively and ratify something? Because this took me back to the Inspector General's report that talked about specific allowable expenses.
Correct. Under our P card policy, you're not allowed to purchase gift cards.
I mean-
What we're doing is we're paying the employees $50. It happens to be in plastic this time rather than, through ACH or a check.
Mr. Sherman, whether it's a P card or we get an invoice from somebody, would members of the body or elected members, or even administration for that matter, be able to go out and purchase gift cards? Similar to how you would purchase, for instance, if I wanted to purchase floral arrangements for
Yeah.
bereavement, would we be permitted to make those purchases independent?
You all kind of keep your voices down.
No,
Just-
the only time that we purchased gift cards in the past is for a city event. When we used to do the Thursday fun nights, they used to hand out gift cards occasionally. And I believe they've, Parks and Recs probably has done, I think CRA may have done it in the past too, but
Sherman,
it's.
I'm trying to
it's
find
an
out,
event.
can I do that? Because I spoke to Mr. Evans about
Yeah.
the trunk or treat and the SROs, and I wanted to do it out of my personal pocket. And then, now that we have this here, my question is very clear. Can I use my budgeted money?
I would.
Let me ask the finance director, if you don't mind. My question is very clear. Am I able to use my budgeted money to purchase gift cards or other honorariums, such as, gift certificate to a spa or something, for a city employee?
I think, and this is something that the attorney can opine, but I think that this statute talks about bonus programs or what have you, that it has to be eligible for all employees. It can't be something where you pick certain employees. So this particular program, it's eligible to all the employees and they all receive the same amount. So I think that is what creates the difference versus if you were to utilize, any city monies to do that. Is it eligible for all employees to receive the amount that you would look to give to the other, the employees that you're looking to recognize? Because there is specific provisions in the statutes that talk about bonuses or compensation or performance, or that it has to be eligible for all employees. You can't, because they were giving situations where you would see bonuses that were given to certain employees and not, but the statute speaks to it has to be a program that is eligible to all employees.
Do you think it's possible to get an opinion? And that way we'll be clear and we won't have to worry about something coming back or wondering if it's gonna come back?
The opinion on whether you all can do it as a whole or whether
As a whole.
individually?
I know we can't do it as an individual. I mean, but
Well,
as a whole.
I know we couldn't do it as
know
individuals,
you know
but now it just presents a very unusual situation where you're asking us to ratify something.
But that's why I'm asking, can we get an opinion so
Yes.
that we don't have to answer that tonight and we can come back with this?
Yes, we'll bring you an
So
opinion
Make
back.
sure.
we can vote and approve it, but if
I'm
the
not
opinion
voting to
is,
approve anything that I'm waiting to hear back, whether it's a yes or a no.
okay.
I mean,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I make a motion that we table this, so that you can get an opinion in regards to.
Everybody's comfortable. Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
All right, well,
Need a second.
does that second stand? Who made the motion? Botel, are you okay with that? Second stand?
The-
You need the date, what were you saying?
Wait a minute, Madam Chair, hold on. The individuals who made the motion.
She said yes.
Okay, but Ms. Lanier is the one that made the motion to table. So we need a second to the table.
We've done that already.
Once you've done this, I know you asked Ms. Botel if she was okay with that, so are you seconding the? Okay, now, once you make a motion to table, there is no longer any discussion.
We're voting on tabling.
All discussion cease.
So we're done.
Voting on table.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Councilperson Lanier?
Yes.
Councilperson Lawson?
Yes.
Councilperson McCoy?
Yes.
Pro Tem Botel?
Yes.
Chair Miller Anderson?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
All right, we're gonna make
Please
sure
be
we
reminded
consistent
that
all the way across.
when this is
next
brought
time.
back to the board, we need to take it off the table.
Well, you're gonna help us remember that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, discussion by city attorney. So if you would like to mention that, what you just talked to Sherman, did you find anything out? And that would be under your attorney's discussion.
No, I was just trying to make sure that Mr. Evans would have enough time to actually do this if you are allowed when we bring it back, and he does.
Even if they get it after Christmas, it'll be, I'm sure, happy here as well.
So we'll bring the opinion back, but no further comment.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. City council committee reports? Nobody, wow. Statements by the mayor and city council, starting with Mr. Lawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick announcements. I want to thank Vibe 95 for the turkey drive that they hosted this past weekend. Over 1,000 turkeys were given out. It was an amazing event. Great turnout, and a lot of my colleagues were there. We're hosting a networking brunch on December 15th. That's going to be a networking brunch where we're going to actually have some of our department heads. Hopefully, Mr. Evans will be able to attend to speak to our residents about working with the city, about contracting with the city, about getting jobs with the city. We have 60-plus positions available within the city, so we're hoping that our new HR director will also attend and just kind of talk to the residents and have a networking brunch just to talk about how we can, engage with the city together. On December 17th, we're going to be having a mental health in the minority community. We're partnering with Mind Over You, who actually host our last symposium. This one is going to be addressing mental health within black males, depression within black males, and also the crisis that we're experiencing with human trafficking. So December 17th, it'll be right here in the chambers. That's going to be at 6:30. We're going to network and market with some of the consultants, the therapists, mental health therapists, that will be here from 6:30 to about 7, and the conversation will start promptly at 7 p.m. So please, residents, if you are able to attend, we'd love for you to come out to both of these events.
All right, Ms. Lanier.
I'd just like to briefly thank Mr. Evans and the city staff all over for their hard work, for their diligence, for ensuring that the city continues to run, and also ensuring that we have the information that we need to be able to make decisions. I really want to thank the staff of the city for all of their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, thank you, Councilman Lawson, for your contribution, and also Vibe 95 for the turkey giveaway that went off successfully. And thank you, Madam Chair, for your attendance. I wanted to point out, the Palm Beach Daily News recognized Jonathan Evans being elected as the Secretary and Treasurer of the Cities, County, and Management Association. So congratulations, Mr. Evans. And that's it, thanks. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Botel?
Congratulations, Mr. Evans. I have a toy drive I wanted to let people know about. We do have a box in the lobby of City Hall to deposit toys, but these are toys that are exclusively for Riviera Beach children. And Mr. Evans and I are going to figure out how they're going to get distributed, maybe by the police department or the fire department. In any case, it's a group called PBC Management. If you don't want to actually go buy a toy and bring it to City Hall, you can go on this website, www.rivierbeach.net. Very easy, www.rivierbeach.net. And there's a way you can go on to Amazon, and the toys will be delivered right to this organization that's going to deliver them to our children. That toy drive ends December 11th, so please participate soon. Also, on December 12th, I'm co-hosting a toy drive called 12 Guitars of Christmas. You could participate in that and maybe win a really cool guitar. That will be over at Das Craft Beer over at the Singer Island Mall. Again, that's on December 12th, the 12 Guitars of Christmas at Das at the Singer Island Mall, at Ocean Walk Mall. And then on December 3rd, on a more serious note, Dr. Wibby and I will be hosting a meeting of the Palm Beach State College group that's going to be delivering the coursework at our Public Works Building. December 3rd at 6 o'clock, we will be actually registering people right there. You'll be getting help with registration, help with tuition, and so forth. So December 3rd at the Public Works Building, which is, what's the address, Mr. Evans, please? I never can remember it.
Oh, geez. I'll tell you.
1481 West 15th Street.
Thank you,
Yeah,
1481 West
I
15th
just-
Street,
I
but it's
just
not
drive
really on 15th Street, it's really on 13th Street, so call somebody and ask. If you're interested in coming to that, please drop me an email so that we know about how many people are coming. My email address is jbotel@rivierabeach.org. Again, that's December 3rd, 6 o'clock at the Public Works Building for the Business Specialist CCC program that Palm Beach State College is delivering right here in Riviera Beach. We have figured out a way to make it free for people who qualify for financial assistance, so please participate. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Felder?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a report concerning the Housing Authority. It has come to my attention that there have been serious issues that have arisen regarding the chairperson of the Riviera Beach Housing Authority, Mr. Delvin Thomas. On Tuesday, October 15, 2019, a police officer with the city of Palm Bay observed a vehicle on I-95 that was traveling at a high speed, following vehicles at an unsafe distance, abruptly changing lanes and cutting other vehicles off. The officer conducted a vehicle check, which revealed that the vehicle was registered to the City of Riviera Beach Housing Authority. The officer initiated a traffic stop. Further investigation revealed that Mr. Thomas' driver's license was suspended on February 12, 2018. Mrs. Thomas asserted that he was not aware of the suspension. The officer issued Mr. Thomas a traffic citation for driving with a suspended license without knowledge, and a citation with a mandatory court date for reckless driving. His driver's license was also seized at the scene, and he was told not to drive until his license was reinstated. The officer conducted Mr. Hurt, director of the Housing Authority, before, during, and after the incident, letting him know that the vehicle would be left with Mr. Thomas, who stated that his wife, the city attorney of Riviera Beach, Florida, would respond to the scene and transport Mr. Thomas, as well as the vehicle, to Riviera Beach. I bring this to the council's attention to let you know that I have discussed this matter with Mr. Hurt as well as members of the Housing Authority Board. At the Housing Authority Board meeting on Tuesday, November 12, 2019, the board removed Mr. Thomas as chairman and directed Mr. Hurt to take possession of the vehicle within 48 hours and develop a policy for the use of a vehicle. You should also be aware that, contrary to Mr. Thomas, to the Palm Bay police officer, Mr. Thomas is not married to the city's attorney for the city of Riviera Beach. Pursuant of Florida statutes, as mayor, I have the authority to remove members of the Housing Authority for 3 reasons: inefficiency of duty, neglect of duty, and misconduct in office. I've asked the city attorney to review the circumstances surrounding this situation, and Ms. Nguyen has advised that the facts herein do not give a rise to inefficiency of duty, neglect, or duty of misconduct in office. Please be aware that according to documentation I received from Mr. Hurt, Mr. Thomas' term on the Housing Authority Board expires on January 18, 2020. Thank you.
All right.
I don't understand what he just said. So can I ask a question?
Pull your mic down.
So I guess I didn't understand. So are you saying you removed him for misconduct?
No. We did a investigation about what it was because I got a call that he stated that the city attorney, our city attorney, was his wife, stated from the police, which he denies that. So we investigated. He was driving with a suspended license. So we didn't find any misconduct. Talking to Mr. Hurt, the director, his term would be up 2020. I would not reinstate him.
Okay, anything else?
When 2020?
January 2020.
Anyone else regarding that? All right, and I don't have any comments at this time. And with that, we stand adjourned.